terrified.
A quick hello and we're good to go. Welcome to the show, Geraldine Deruiter. Welcome.
Hi.
You get the song. Absolutely lovely to see you. Sorry for everybody who's watching that we're a tiny bit late. We were having trouble setting all this up. But it doesn't matter because we have this amazing talk about the Pratfall effect, which I'm really keen on. And I actually researched you a little bit and researched the topic, and you'll see what happened with that. Here we go. Geraldine is the Everywhereist, whatever that means. This is their site. I'm sure you can explain it to me. What is an Everywhereist? I love the word.
Oh, thank you. It came about on accident, actually. I was trying to come up with a name for my travel blog more than a decade ago. And I was writing down all these different names, and I was reading my husband, and I came up with the Everywhere list, and he misunderstood me and thought I said Everywhereist. And he said, I love that. And I said, that's really good. I'm going to use that. So that's what the name ended up being.
Yeah, well, I heard that Spotify was the same thing. As there were two people in two different rooms, and one of them kept shouting these ideas, and one of them misheard, and that's how it got named Spotify.
I mean, it's perfect, right? Because it doesn't really mean anything. So, yeah, it works out.
Maybe sometimes we overthink it, and if we just shout from room to room, the idea actually turns out to be good when it's misunderstood.
That's how all meetings should take place, just across two different rooms with people who can barely hear each other. That's what we're doing now. All meetings are, you're right.
Exactly. Wonderful. And so what I did is, now look at this. We've got a knowledge panel for this event, which is absolutely wonderful. I'm terribly pleased with that. And it actually ranks when you search for the Pratfall effect, Geraldine Deruiter. And then I searched for it because I was researching it, and I realized that this event has got the entire first page. And the reason I suggested this title was because you've given a talk about it before. So I thought I'll go onto the videos and look for that. And my podcast has the entire first page. I couldn't find the interview that I had chosen for you to talk about. So I've got no idea what you talked about in the interview.
It was a lifetime ago.
Right. Well, I did something smart.
Okay.
No, I got some extra topics in case we get stuck.
Okay. Well, so I believe the talk, and forgive me because it was probably a decade ago when I talked about this. So, like 3 lifetimes ago, and the before times when we used to actually get to see and touch people. But I spoke about the Pratfall effect, and I believe that the entire concept of my talk was that sometimes we obviously, like we cover up our mistakes, and we try and create a patina of perfection, and we need to remove that, and we need to kind of own our failures and our mistakes. And sometimes we can actually redefine what failure is. And if we do that, then we get to redefine who gets to succeed and who gets to fail.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's a lot of the stuff you talk about is about that. It's like kind of failure. You talk about Bob Dylan and the fact that he isn't a very good singer. My only comment there is he's a very, very good songwriter. And it was kind of, maybe you can say that the songwriting makes up for and the lyrics make up for the bad singing.
Well, so what I think is, like Bob Dylan is objectively, he's not what we would call a good singer, right? Like he's not pleasant to listen to in the way that someone
Paul McCartney is.
Paul McCartney, sure, or someone kind of more classically trained. I want to say Bowie, but even Bowie kind of had this peculiar sort of style. But at some point, the peculiarities and the strangeness and the uniqueness that is their voice becomes kind of its own special definition of good. So Bob Dylan, when you hear him on the radio, you're like, oh, it's Dylan. And if someone said, well, he can't sing, you'd be like, what are you talking about? It's Bob Dylan. It's almost like he transcends not being able to sing.
Well, one big part of kind of singing, I mean, I'm a musician, I'm a singer, and I was
know,
in a band.
I heard.
Oh, right, sorry, yeah. Well, I was in a band for 6 years with this guy called Hugo Scott, who was the lead singer. And I thought, I want to sing lots of songs, and they wouldn't let me, which is because as soon as he sang 3 notes, you would know it was him. And when I sang 3 notes at the time, you wouldn't know it was me. I didn't have the distinctive voice like Sting has, and Hugo Scott, who's the singer in the band, and Bob Dylan definitely has a distinctive voice.
Yeah.
And for the Boo and Koala cartoon, I made a cartoon with my ex-wife. She sings out of tune, and that was her speciality. And she was very recognizable for that. And she had a more recognizable voice than I did. And I think in pop music particularly, recognizable is more important than good.
Yeah, that kind of uniqueness.
Well, obviously, with the limit, you have to have kind of something like timing or whatever. Anyway, that wasn't the point. What the point was, we can redefine failure. I mean, I looked up the Pratfall effect and found that. Obviously, I looked a long way. I just took the featured snippet.
Yeah. And so should we talk a bit about the Pratfall effect and what it is?
Yeah, because I've actually done some research about it, so I actually now know more about it than I did this morning. I like the idea, and that's what you were talking about, is that when we fail, it isn't such a bad thing. It makes us look more human.
Yeah.
So yeah, please go into that. I mean, we look more human, more approachable.
Well, so the Pratfall effect is this psychological concept that, and I should be clear, it tends to work if you are perceived as an otherwise competent person. Yep. So if you think that you have everything together, and then you get up on stage and you start to flub, which is what I tend to do. Right?
Oh, I like the word flub. That's a good word.
Yeah. Right?
F-L-U-B, yeah.
Yes, isn't it wonderful? Or you just, the words get caught and they don't come out right, or you trip a little on the way to the stage, or something happens, or you're watching the video afterward. I don't know if you have this problem. I can't watch videos of myself afterward, after I've given a talk. My husband tells me I need to, because that's how you improve. And I don't want to, because it is so deeply uncomfortable. And yeah, and I've actually found that there's an American actor, his name's Adam Driver. He was in the new Parable, but he is objectively a good actor, I think. He can't watch his own films because it's so deeply uncomfortable. But
well, the thing is, I actually watched you quite a lot in preparation for this, and you're very good. I mean, there's nothing not to like about it.
But it's not. Thank you. First of all, thank you. But it's not.
No. It's true. That's a truthful comment. I mean, I agree with your husband. It's if you keep watching yourself, you get used to it. And once you've got used to it, you can start to learn. I mean, people tell me I watch myself too much, and it looks like self-obsession or overly critical of myself. But it's actually just saying, where could I do better? It's not saying where did I go wrong. It's what could I do better. Sorry.
Right. Well, and so if you come across as otherwise competent, those little mistakes, the little hiccups, the words that don't come out right, and you can even point them out. And I do on occasion. There was one presentation I did, which was it was an absolute disaster. I can talk about it a little bit, but it was so bad.
It makes you really uncomfortable.
It makes me so uncomfortable. And I gave it at HubSpot, which is a company I'm a huge fan of. I was invited to speak there by the founder of the company, Dharmesh Shah, who I am close to. And they bought copies of my book, and I was going to be speaking on the topic of online harassment. And what I did not realize is that the room I would be speaking in, there were 2 things about it. One was that there were bleachers up. So I would be looking up at the audience, which is a very different speaking style than I'm used to. I'm used to being up on a stage and kind of looking down. And if that becomes uncomfortable, you can raise your line of vision to the horizon. And so you don't actually have to make eye contact with anyone.
Right.
And I'm used to speaking in dark rooms. And this room was white fluorescent lighting, and I could see every single person's face. Now, the thing about giving a talk about online harassment is that you're talking about something horrible. And so everyone's facial expressions are terrified. And so I am looking at a sea of people who actually appreciated my talk and were listening to me, but their facial expressions were mortified. And then I was wearing a crisp white shirt that I completely sweated through.
Okay.
From the nerves. And then I forgot my glasses. So I couldn't see my own slides.
So this is a whole accumulation of small points that just went, one or two of them would have been fine.
And I was so nervous that I couldn't sleep the night before. So I was extremely jet lagged, super tired, low blood sugar, couldn't see the slides. It was the worst talk I have ever given.
And yet you said that the people were actually moved by what you were saying. So they were paying attention, you were getting your message across. I mean, people weren't as critical of you as you are yourself.
That's always true. Right. And this is another psychological kind of truth, right? That we perceive our own mistakes as being far worse than they are. And we actually perceive the gaps in speech or time that elapses when we're on stage in which we don't say anything to be 4 times longer than it actually is.
Oh, is that a real number? 4?
Yeah, I think it's around 4. Yeah, so if we're quiet for 2 seconds, we think that we were 8 seconds.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
It is true. I mean, I don't know about you, but when I'm talking, I remember an awful lot of what I said and the moments that struck me during the conversation. And when I watch back, I can actually identify those moments and think, oh, that felt like it was much longer as a silence.
Right. Yeah, you automatically see it.
And I actually learned to play the double bass in the space of about a month, not because I'm particularly brilliant, but because I had
That sounds kind of brilliant.
No,
okay.
I cheated. I completely cheated. There was a midget German double bass player. He was really cool. He was called Franz, and he just said,
"That's a pretty cool name."
As soon as it is a great name, isn't it? He was a
Franz,
wonderful
the
guy.
German bass player. I mean, come on.
But he said to me, as soon as you make a mistake, forget it. What you've got to do is completely put it behind you, and if you can't do that, you're never going to survive. The other is to smile and look like you know what you're doing. And the other, in terms of double bass, is just hit it in time to the music. And if you get the note wrong, nobody cares. And the only people who notice you've got a note wrong are the jazz players, and they won't dare say anything because they'll think you've done something really clever they don't understand, which is genius.
And this is part of redefining what success is.
I like it. Oh, it's wonderful. Yeah. No, you're a genius. I hadn't seen that.
I don't know about that, but it's true. You've redefined what success is.
Well, you were saying feel comfortable with yourself, and you can define what success and failure is. Oh, the nice end to that story is actually he was very, very small. I mean, not complete midget, but he was probably about this tall.
Did you just use the M word? You can't say that.
Can't I? Oh, no, sorry. Oh, no. I didn't know it was a
No, you cannot say that.
Oh, right, okay. I just learned a terrible faux pas. What should I say?
I'm going to call you out on that. I will call you out.
No, sure. What should I say? I'm happy to learn.
You can say little person. You can say someone who is a dwarf. I think you could say those. I think. I don't know. I'm a person of average height, so I don't know.
In that case, what I would say is he was spectacularly short for a double bass player. Because double bass generally requires you to be quite tall.
That is okay. So, yes.
In the context,
say the M word.
I don't. Yeah, no. In the context, it makes kind of sense, but it's kind of making humor out of something that you shouldn't. Oh, it's not. It's not healthy to make humor out of. So I'll come back and just say he was spectacularly short for a double bass player. And what was interesting at the end was that he actually had to stand on a table right at the back of the room, and he spent his whole time going, just trying to keep me on track, and it was absolutely wonderful performance by him.
So he really cared about your success.
Yeah, that's another very interesting point. He really did.
He was really invested. Why do you think he was so invested in your success?
I'd like to say he's a nice guy, but I mean, no, I don't know beyond the fact that he was a nice guy.
Do you think he tied his own? Do you think he tied his own success to yours?
Potential. Oh, that's not bad. I mean, kind of. He taught me in 2 hours. He gave me a 2 hour lesson,
Yeah.
and then he left me alone for a month to try and figure it all out. And I think you're right. I think he felt that it was his responsibility that I would actually succeed.
Yeah, I think that part of it is all like there is this like we have our own successes are through other people in a lot of ways.
Well, that's an interesting I mean, I think kind of, well, coming back to the failure point. I mean, you're saying you got up on stage, you seem to be, because that was the other way around. He was trying to make me feel and seem like I was much better than I truly was.
Yes. Yeah. Well, wait, was he, or were you maybe better than you think you were?
But that's true as well. It's kind of once you get to be as good as you're supposed to be to actually doing this thing, those little mistakes are actually very endearing, and that was the point of this conversation. Was the idea that you don't have to be as perfect as you think you do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's absolutely true, and I think there's something else. So first of all, going back to the Pratfall effect. If you have that level of, you seem to be a competent person,
right,
and you make those small mistakes, you are perceived as more approachable and more empathetic, and people can relate to you better. I think there's something else too about how we recover from those mistakes.
Yeah.
Watching people do that. And I think that is kind of a miraculous thing, you know? I think that shows the adaptability of people. And I also think it shows growth of people. I think I threw you off your game just now when I told you not to use the M word.
Right. Yep.
And I see you kind of incorporating that, processing that new information, and being like, okay, I need to not say that. So what can make that better? And I think that that's an important thing. Like, it's not just that we make the mistake, but how can we make that situation better? And how can I learn from this situation? And how can I use that to be a better person going forward? Right. Because the mistakes are going to happen, and the bad things are going to happen, and we are going to do bad things. I do bad things, but how can I take when I am called out on it to become a better person going forward? And I think it's when people don't do that, that's where problems really develop.
Oh, and that was one of the topics I wrote there, failing and falling forwards.
Yes. Yeah.
So I did actually do a good job of researching this a little bit, but I love the idea. It's kind of like, first of all, we have to accept that we always make mistakes. Number two is if we just make lots of mistakes, we're never going to look good. The pratfall actually doesn't have an effect. It just makes us look worse and worse and worse. But if we have some kind of competency, those mistakes are endearing. And rightly said, adding to the pratfall effect is how you recover from that mistake is perhaps the most important thing about the situation.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people, I mean, I don't know, sorry, this is completely off the top of my head. I mean, I get on stage, do something, give a talk like you do. When you gave that disastrous talk of what you felt to be a disastrous talk, you didn't just walk off stage.
I wanted to.
But you didn't.
But they had bought hundreds of copies of my book, and the room was filled with people, and they were so nice and gracious to me and super kind. So no, there was no running out of the room. I did throw out that shirt afterward because you sweat in it. It turned dark. It was a white, crisp white shirt. The second you sweat in it, it turned dark. So I'm standing there with just dark circles under my, oh my God. Oh, God.
But it comes back to my friend France, is that they were invested in your success. So they were incredibly nice and supportive and helpful.
And that's the thing I think we need to remember, is that for the most part, the audience is not hostile to us. Sometimes they might be. I mean, there are circumstances that are very unusual where they might be. But for the most part, the audience is really rooting for us. We all kind of are. and I'm sure you've seen it too, where somebody gets on stage and you just want them to do well. Like,
yeah,
you want it, so you're more invested in their success than you are in your own.
Yeah, and how often is it you see somebody get on stage as an audience member and you think, I hope they fall over, I hope they fail? I mean, they have to be a pretty appalling human being.
Oh, never, never.
And I think I remember when I spoke at Brighton SEO for the first time, and in fact the only time. And they had a coaching session where they were just saying, everybody wants you to succeed. So, I mean, the only break to your own success is yourself, which is a nice way. They didn't put it quite like that. That's a bit brutal. But
say that again.
I added the last bit. That wasn't Brighton SEO. Please don't quote me on that.
I won't. I just don't know if I agree with it. They say that the only
sorry. Well, I'll stop where they stopped. Is they said everybody in the room wants you to succeed. They're all rooting for you, which is what you said.
Yes.
And then I added, completely off my own back, ad-libbing, probably a big mistake. The only barrier to your own success is yourself. So now you can pick that one apart.
I think I've terrified you right now.
You're freaking me out.
I'm talking to this radical left-wing American who will just call me out on everything I say. I think I've terrified you.
But I'm honestly interested to know what exactly is wrong with that statement.
I think that for me it is for me it is true, and it is true for a lot of us. It is not true for everyone.
Very good point.
Yeah, I think for me it is true. So I am in my office, right? And I am in this very safe, beautiful office. It's a mess right now. We will ignore that. It is the one room in my home that is absolutely, it is just, I have tilted the camera up so you can't actually see the piles of paper. I almost want to show them to you. I'm just going to, just very briefly, I'm going to show you some of the they're just sitting piles of paper. Okay.
I think pretty much everybody's got that kind of situation going on. I'm not going to turn the camera around and show a big pile of washing on a clothes horse here.
But I have this gorgeous office, right? And I have an excellent Wi-Fi connection. And I have this lovely home. And I have a mortgage that I know I have the resources to pay every month. And I have a safe place to work in a safe neighborhood. And I have a supportive partner who is just aces and is great. And so I have all these levels of privilege and support and just baked into my life. And so for me, when I don't get things done because I'm, goofing off on Twitter, or I'm just, I don't want to do it, then I know the only thing that's getting in my way is me.
No, 100%.
But that's not true for everyone else.
No, sure, 100%. Yeah. You're right. And just from the point of view, is my immediate reaction is that. And in fact, there are lots of different things that can bring somebody a break. And I had this conversation a couple of years ago. If I look at the advantages that I was born with, I'm white, I'm male, I'm English speaking, I'm tall, relatively not too bad looking, well educated, well spoken, vocabulary because my father forced me to read a dictionary as a child.
He did not.
Pretty much, yeah.
He forced you to read the dictionary?
That's a generous interpretation of it.
Later I want to have a talk about what your favorite word is.
Zeugma. Absolutely no doubt at all. And that's because he said the word to me and I said, what's Zeugma?
What is Zeugma?
Well, I'll tell you in a moment. He said, go and look it up in the dictionary, because he had a dictionary that was literally a whole wall. It was literally, 9 feet? 9 feet of dictionary. And he said, go and look it up in the dictionary. And you're going, okay, right, let's start off with, starts with a Z, doesn't it? So you get the Z out. And then you're looking through it, and it doesn't. It starts with a D. It's DZ.
What?
So he didn't even give me the help to say, like, it starts with DZ or how to spell it.
There's no way you could guess that.
And in fact, to Zeugma, I'll give you an example. It's really cool. He took a train and a bath. It's one verb applied to two objects with two different meanings.
Oh.
And it's just so silly. And so, I mean, but we use them more than we actually think. And it's just so silly and pointless. So kind of the point was he wouldn't tell me what anything meant. I had to go and look it up and research it. Oh my
gosh.
And Zeugma was the one that stuck in my brain. And the other one was this 9-foot long, what's it called? Dictionary.
Oh my gosh, Zeugma. I love it. I love it.
Isn't it the best word ever? And it's just,
I love that it's something that exists, that it's not, some obscure thing that no one's ever heard of. Like, I don't know, like a mollusk that is now extinct, that we will never see again. I love that it's something that we have all used at some point. That delights me.
It is absolutely lovely, isn't it? And there's a French alternative rock band who actually have a song with a Zeugma. It's a series of Zeugmas, and I knew the sound engineer, and he said actually the guy who did the lyrics for that, they just played the music and he made the lyrics up off the top of his head. And he managed to get, I can't remember what they are, but 2 or 3 Zeugmas into one verse just off the top of his head. And you go, that's so good. Anyway, that's a completely side story. Back to the pratfall effect. Sorry, back to marketing. I actually did some research because I was thinking, like, what can it use for me? And I found this guy, Pigs Can Fly.
That's a great logo.
It is. It's a great logo.
Use of face.
He's tiny, but I thought that the name was better than the face. I mean, he's a good-looking guy, but go and look him up. He's got a YouTube channel. It's really cool. And he was talking about the pratfall effect. He's the only person I saw on YouTube explaining the pratfall effect with advertising examples, marketing. And this is Avis, and I don't know if you've heard of this. I heard about it. It's Avis saying we're second to her.
Yeah, I remember them making these. When you're only number 2, you try harder.
Yeah.
And
that's, I mean, he's saying it's the pratfall effect. It's not directly the pratfall effect, but it's the marketing equivalent. It's saying, let's make a noise about our faults and make benefits. And I'll give you the other couple of examples because I was intrigued. Guinness, good things come to those who wait. And that's to overcome the fact that you have to wait.
Wait for the Guinness, minutes. The half pour, and then the rest of it.
I love it. And the third one is this one, which just made me giggle. It's the Volkswagen Beetle, think small rather than think big. And then it's ugly, but it gets you there.
Gosh, I love that.
And as he rightly says, it can work incredibly well, but you've got to be really careful about it.
You do. Well, and you have to point out. So again, you have to have a brand that is otherwise very strong.
Right.
People love the Volkswagen Beetle.
Good point. Sorry, I hadn't thought of that. If the brand is strong, you can afford to do this. If the brand is not so strong, you're going to fall over.
Which is, again, the psychological premise behind the pratfall effect. If you are otherwise perceived as competent, then you can make those mistakes. And so everyone loves the Volkswagen Bug, but we are very aware that it is not a large vehicle. And at that point, you can play up that kind of part of it. I feel like there's been I can't think of any off the top of my head right now, but I'm sure that there were other examples. I think a friend of mine did an ad campaign for you're going to be horrified because you're a musician, and I don't know, maybe it was Fender. Ooh. But it was a list of all the musicians who had died who played this particular type of guitar. And it was Jimi Hendrix and all these different ones. And then it said something like, if it wasn't for Clapton, we'd start to worry. We'd think we were cursed or something like that. And it was kind of dark. It was dark. I mean, it was really dark, but it was also this, like, very much awareness, like, okay, like musicians who play our guitar are dead. Like,
But
do we talk
that's
about that?
a
But they're
great
also super
example.
famous and like legendary. So how do we address this? So yeah, he won.
No,
I think he won a Clio Award for it.
right. Well, I mean, the thing about Fender is that they've got such this solid base with all these classic
Yeah,
guitars, as opposed to classical guitars. They can afford to take that risk. And also, the other thing about music is that you say, if I'd been Jimi Hendrix, I would have been happy to have died because that's so cool. You've got that whole kind of, it's so cool. I mean, as a musician, all I wanted was
27. He's from my hometown, so his dad's still. I think his dad's still around, or he was up until a few years ago. He still lived in the same little house out in West Seattle. Yeah.
Okay, and he was the bass player from the Animals who brought him to the UK, which is what kickstarted his career. And the Stray Cats is similar. Is they came to the UK to start their career and then went back to the US to actually kind of make it really big instead of just being in the UK.
I know. We don't. We don't always notice what we have until.
I think that's kind of probably true of.
It's cool.
Well, a lot of cultures miss out on what they've got because they just don't see it. But I mean that's a lot true in kind of pretty much anything, including business, is that you don't realize that you've got this amazing thing going necessarily.
Right, you need that other lens to look at it. So this goes back to not being able to see ourselves clearly, right?
Right.
Like not being able to perceive things clearly when they're too close to you. And so we think that our mistakes are bigger than they are, and we think that those causes are bigger than they are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So no, that's a genius. Sorry, I'm rearranging my screens. That's a genius piece of bringing these things together.
Well, I like to tie threads together if I can, because so many of my ideas are not threaded together. They're very random, so I'm glad I can bring them together.
Well, thank you very much. I think that was a brilliant way to bring it all round in that full circle to the original point. Thank you very much, Geraldine. That was absolutely awesome. I really enjoyed that conversation.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for singing. It was wonderful.
Oh, you get the outro song as well. So thank you to the audience for joining us. Thank you for listening to us. Thank you for watching. Geraldine, that was amazing. Please do join us next week for Joe Kaufman. And you get the outro song as well, which is exactly the same as the intro song, but saying goodbye. A quick goodbye to end the show. Thank you, Geraldine.
I love it.
And I did what I think is a piece of genius is at the beginning I sing your surname and at the end I don't, which implies to me that I know you better by the end of it.
It does. And also I was very impressed that you said my last name properly, which no one does.
Oh, I've been practicing on the Dutch with Joost de Valk and
oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Did you actually ask Joost how to say it?
Oh no. I kind of figured
knew. Oh my goodness.
You just throw out that. The thing is, I do that a lot and I get it wrong as much as I get it right.
Exactly right, which is pretty amazing. And I am not Dutch, so I'm always amazed when people can say it properly. So
brilliant. Well, I will quote you on that. One of the times I didn't do a pratfall because I got it right.
You did it perfect. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you very much. That was delightful.
Will this be, I know it was recorded live. Is it possible that people will be able to watch it?
Yes. You can watch the live stream back on YouTube absolutely anytime. It stays around. The whole thing recorded live stays live, stays on YouTube and on Periscope and on Facebook. So you can come back and watch it time and time again until you get incredibly bored of us talking about Bob Dylan, Paul McCartney, the Stray Cats, Jimi Hendrix, the Animals, and I can't remember who else we talked about from the musical perspective. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I will share it. Thank you for having me.
Brilliant. Bye-bye.